Hello and welcome to this T-Level Tactics video for the T-Level Digital Support Services course. We're looking at our 7th topic of digital needs as a part of Root Core 1 Business Context. Let's take a look at what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to identify some types of customer and end users and what the difference is between them. We're then going to analyse what must be considered to meet the needs of these users. And then we're going to evaluate the value in meeting those needs as well. As always, a short disclaimer before we get started. These videos are not endorsed or sponsored by any education institution or qualification awarding body. And T-Level Tactics videos should not be used as a replacement to any classroom learning you might be receiving, as the discussion and practical activities with peers and your lecturer will help to expand your thinking and comprehension. Instead, these materials are best used as preparation material or as revision to reinforce any learning. Also, if you're studying the T-Level Digital Business Services course, this content is suitable for you too, but it is going to be more contextualized towards IT support roles. Let's start with our first section then. So when deploying technology in an organization, we'll need to consider two groups of people: our customers and/or end users. Sometimes they can be the same thing, and sometimes not. Let's take a look at what the difference is. A customer is going to be somebody who purchases or acquires a product or service from us. They could be internal to the organization, but usually external. They're going to have requirements, preferences, and expectations. And customers may or may not be the user of the product, but they will be the person or people who have the authority to make purchasing decisions. So, for instance, the purchasing department of another organization. Now, end users are split down into two further categories. We're going to have primary users, who are the people who are going to use our product or service on a day-to-day basis. They're going to be people who interact directly with that product or service, and they're our target audience that we're meeting the needs of. We've then got secondary users as well, and these are going to be people, users, who have less frequent usage of that product or service, and they may interact with it in a more supporting role or perhaps in only specific situations. The product or service must still be suitable for these users, but we need to be meeting the needs of the primary users first. Let's look at a quick example of how this might work. Let's look at a customer relationship management system, or CRM. Our primary user of this system is going to be customer service staff, and they're going to manage customer interactions and try to improve customer relations. That's what they do on a day-to-day basis. But we do also have some secondary users of the system as well, and this is going to be people in roles like management or executives. And they're going to want to use the system to analyze data, monitor performance, and track KPIs. They're not going to interact directly with customers through this system, but they are going to rely on the data and reports to make informed business decisions. Now that's a quick look at customers and end users, and if you're a member of the Patreon, now's the time to open up the task sheet that accompanies the video and have a go at the first task. It's a short, quick task. Spend about 15 minutes on it. So pause the video here, have a go at that, then come back and we'll move on to the second part. Okay, let's take a look at some of these user needs. There are some key areas that we need to consider when thinking about how to meet the needs of our users. We can think about the profile of our user and any potential issues they may encounter when using our product or service. Let's start off with the profile. Now, a user profile is essentially all about identifying, well, who is our user? And it's looking at things like, what's their technical ability? What policies or guidelines are they going to have to follow in their role? Is our product going to be accessible to them? Is our product inclusive of all users? What cultural or diversity aspects do we need to think about? And how can we clearly address all of these points in the design of our product or service? And all of these are points that will apply to both software and hardware. Let's think about the technical ability first of all. Your users are going to have varying levels of technical proficiency. So you should design interfaces and systems that account for that. Perhaps you could provide clear instructions, tooltips, and additional help resources to support users with different levels of technical knowledge and skills. And it's always best to use clear, plain language, avoiding jargon or complex technical terminology that may confuse or alienate less tech-savvy users. Now, if you know for sure that your audience are filled with technically competent people who are going to understand the language, then that's a more suitable situation to use it in. But where we're not entirely sure of the ability of our users, it's best to play it safe. If we think about policies, well, there are going to be some things that we need to consider in terms of law and legislation from a design standpoint anyway, but it's good to think about what our users are going to need to do. So we know, for instance, that GDPR is something that applies to everybody, no matter the business or organization. So we could implement security measures and data protection protocols to safeguard user information and uphold regulatory compliance. We may also need to meet additional industry standards or regulations that impact users in their specific industry, whether that be construction, technology, healthcare, or anything else. In terms of accessibility, this is making sure that everybody can use our product or service to the full. It's about accommodating users with varying needs and disabilities to enable equal access. And there are standards that set out how can this be achieved. So for instance, there are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines to ensure digital inclusivity on the web. It could also be incorporating compatibility with assistive technologies such as screen readers, voice commands, and alternative input methods. It would be good to provide multiple modes of interaction and customization options for users with diverse accessibility requirements. Now, this kind of links in with our next topic of diversity and inclusivity. It's about recognizing and respecting the cultural diversity of our end users. And we can tailor products and services to accommodate different cultural norms, values, and preferences based upon where our product or service is going to be used. And we can embrace diversity in our user representation to reflect a wide range of identities and experiences. We should be trying to avoid stereotypes and any biases in design and communication to ensure inclusivity for all cultural backgrounds. Let's take a look at a smart assistant as an example of how we could meet the needs of our users. So a business has created a smart home assistant device for use in care homes. This is what they could do to address their user needs. First of all, they could support multiple languages and dialects, ensuring that their smart assistant recognizes different accents. They could include voice commands, tactile buttons, and visual indicators using a combination of these things to ensure that anybody can take advantage. They could also link it to a mobile app or another system in order to display text-based responses for people who would need that. And because we're not entirely sure of the technical proficiency of the people that this is being marketed to, we can make sure that the setup process and user interface is designed to be intuitive and guided with step-by-step instructions. And of course, along with that, we need to make sure that any technical terminology is kept to a minimum. Now, it's not just the user needs that we need to consider, it's also thinking about what potential issues users could come across when using our product or service. So how will our user know how to operate the system? How are they going to know about the functionality it offers? When or how are they going to be trained to use this system? What kinds of issues should we anticipate? And how are we going to support users with these issues? Further, What kind of demand for support will there be? And how quickly can we respond to those requests? It could be we have a fantastic system and we only get occasional requests for support. But if it's brand new and there's lots of functionality, we could quickly become inundated with lots and lots of requests. Let's take a look at usability and functionality. Users are likely to be unfamiliar with the user interface or the hardware. They could find it too complex, for instance. Is the operation and navigation of the product or service intuitive? Is it similar or familiar to something they may have used before? And are users going to encounter any new issues not identified in testing or quality control? I can answer that for you. Yes, they probably will. In terms of training, some of these problems can be mitigated through training. But the problem in organizations is often, well, how can this be provided? Is it going to be in person? Is it through electronic user guides that people can access themselves? Is it going to be through videos? More importantly, how can users access this and when are they going to have the time to do so? If it's going to be a part of their job, then are they going to need to train themselves on this during work hours? Or are they going to be given additional time and funding to do it out of regular hours? Responsiveness is all about how quickly the customer perceives the product or service to work for them. Is it providing fast results to the user? Is it quicker than their previous way of working? Does it involve less steps to achieve the same result? If they're feeling like it's not quicker than before, is this because we haven't met their needs correctly, or is it because the user doesn't understand how to use the system properly yet? Are they getting confused along the way? Do they need to be shown how it works? Or do we need to do some additional work behind the scenes? Availability is all about, well, how is this user going to do the job if there's a system that needs to be switched over? How are we going to minimize downtime? And downtime is the length of time the product or service is unusable. How often is maintenance going to be required? Are there going to be regular updates? If you're someone who plays some online games, you'll notice that sometimes, often once a week, that game can be unavailable while they perform maintenance on the game's servers. That's a form of downtime, and that's going to be a period of time where you're not able to access that product or service you've purchased. If maintenance is required, for instance, if it's required for something that wasn't scheduled, are there going to be backup systems in place? And when issues do occur that weren't planned, what kind of response times are you going to offer the customer for support to be provided? Let's take a look at another example now. This time, our example is a touchscreen kiosk. A business has been tasked with installing touchscreen kiosks in a new food outlet. They've considered the following. They've specified touchscreens with a low response time and multi-touch features. They've planned to have a web-based interface featuring a large, easy-to-read design with live inventory updates. There'll also be messages on screen to help guide the user. Their web interface is going to reduce the need for local processing power in the device. And they're going to install multiple kiosks to ensure continued service if one of them is taken offline. As a part of it, they're also going to install a remote monitoring system so support can be deployed to the store quickly and efficiently to resolve any issues. Here's a quick summary of what we've taken a look at in those two sections. First of all, we had user profile, where we were looking at the user's technical knowledge, any policies and guidelines we need to consider and that they may need to consider in their work. Accessibility, inclusivity, and cultural awareness and diversity. We then looked at our second section on user issues, looking at usability of the product or service, functionality, user training, response time of the system availability, and the response we're going to give for support when things go wrong. Now, if you're a Patreon member, you can have a look at the second task on the task sheet now. So head back there, and it's going to take you a little bit longer for this. I'm going to spend about 20 minutes on a user needs analysis for a scenario. So pause the video here, go take a look at that task, and then come back when you're ready to move on. Okay, let's evaluate how effective it can be to meet the needs of a user. Now, if everything goes to plan, there will be some benefits, but how can we identify them? What are they going to look like? What will users think of our product and service? And how do we create, here's that keyword again, value? Well, the benefits could come in the form of financial benefits. We'll see increased revenue and profit in our business. It could be that we get feedback of an improved user experience. Customers are going to want to keep coming back to a business that they can rely on, and that they know and trust, which helps us to build a reputation for our organization. Customers that have a good experience are likely to share it with their friends and family. We could also see it in some positive market research and feedback. Things like survey responses, feedback left on websites, and customer testimonials. It's qualitative feedback as well, not just quantitative. Market research data could also give us some indications that what we're doing is working. Positive reputation for our organizational business is going to lead to increased web traffic and/or potential clicks on advertisements, and giving us more opportunity for targeted advertising in the future. And if we're selling a product on Amazon, for instance, or any other website, we're going to have some positive user reviews left there. It could also be on Yelp, YouTube, whatever service that you're using. It's not all about money. If we're hearing good things, that often means that it's having a larger impact than what we can just see coming in. Okay, now it's time to evaluate. If you remember the Patreon, the evaluation is part of task 3. So head back to the task sheet and have a go at that task. It's a little bit longer. This one's about 30 to 45 minutes. It's going to put everything you've learned so far to the test. Have a go at that, then come back here. We'll wrap things up having a look at what we've done so far in this video and an exam question. So, this video, we've looked at types of customers and end users and what the difference is between them. We've analysed what must be considered to meet their needs, and we've also done an evaluation of what the value in meeting those needs is as well. So you should hopefully be ready to answer this exam-style question. Explain the importance of meeting user and customer needs in IT, and provide 2 specific examples to illustrate how failing to address user needs can impact the success of IT projects or services. There are 4 marks available here. And that brings us to the end of the video. In the next video, we're going to be looking at how we can provide value through our IT support and implementation of products and services. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to be alerted when that goes live. And if you're not a member of the Patreon yet, head over there and check it out to see some of those task sheets and additional guidance and support available there. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.